The richest man in town just paid to have a biker killed, and the only witness is a terrified 6-year-old hiding behind a dumpster. She has one choice: run to her mother and stay safe, or run to a leather-clad stranger and save his life. Her choices and the next set of events will make you question if there is any humanity in the world. The first thing Lily heard was the thunder. Not the kind from clouds. This came from the earth itself, rolling down Main Street like a living thing. Her chocolate milk trembled in its glass. The sugar shaker danced across the Formica table. Outside the diner window, Mrs. Henderson's hanging baskets swayed like they were trying to run away. "Don't look, honey." Her mama's hand came down firm on her shoulder, but Lily had already seen them. 12 motorcycles, chrome catching the July sun like broken mirrors. And at the front, riding a bike so black it seemed to swallow light, was the biggest man Lily had ever seen. The Stone Guardians had returned to Havenwood. Inside Betty's diner, forks stopped mid-bite. Coffee cups paused at lips. Old Mr. Paulson muttered something under his breath and reached for his wallet, like he was planning to pay and leave before they came inside. The whole town held its breath. Lily pressed her nose against the window glass, leaving a small circle of fog. She counted the patches on their leather vests, skulls and eagles and words she couldn't read yet. But it was the big man she couldn't stop watching. He had a beard like her picture book Vikings and hands that looked like they could bend steel. The engines cut off one by one, leaving a ringing silence that felt heavier than the noise. "They're trouble," Mama whispered, pulling Lily back into the booth. "You stay clear of men like that. You hear me?" But Lily didn't hear, because right then, as the big man swung his leg off that midnight black Harley, he looked straight through the diner window. Straight at her. She expected anger, maybe a snarl, the monster face Mama always warned about. Instead, Bo Wrecker, Wilson gave her something she'd remember for the rest of her life. A nod. Slow. Deliberate. Like he saw her. Not the way grown-ups usually looked at kids, past them, through them, around them. He saw her the way her daddy used to, before the cancer took him. Like she mattered. Then his eyes moved on, scanning the street with the careful attention of a man who'd learned to watch his back. His boots hit the pavement with a sound like a judge's gavel. Lily's heart hammered against her ribs. She didn't know it yet, but in less than 24 hours, that nod would be the only reason he'd still be alive. Lily's favorite blue crayon rolled off the table, bounced twice, and disappeared under the booth. "I'll get it." She slid down before Mama could stop her, following that crayon as it rolled toward the back door, past the kitchen where Betty was frying burgers, right out into the alley where the dumpsters baked in the heat. The smell hit her first, rotting food and hot metal and something else. Cigarette smoke. She froze. 2 men crouched beside the big black motorcycle, the one the huge man had been riding. She recognized them instantly. Dale Carver and his cousin Rick, the ones Mama called Higgins dogs. They did the dirty work for the richest man in 3 counties. Lily ducked behind the green dumpster, her heart suddenly loud in her ears. "Higgins wants him gone for good this time," Dale was saying, his voice low and mean. "Says these road trash keep scaring off the investors. So we're really doing this." Rick sounded nervous. $50, says Wrecker. Don't make it past mile marker 47. Dale pulled something from his pocket. Wire cutters, the kind Grandpa used on fence posts. That curve by Dawson's Ridge? At 70 miles per hour with no brakes. The metallic snip echoed off the brick walls. Lily's breath caught in her throat. She watched Dale hold up a severed cable, grinning like he'd just won at bingo. "Nasty accident," Rick laughed, but it sounded forced. "Sheriff won't ask too many questions about a dead biker." They stood, brushing off their knees, and walked right past her hiding spot. She pressed herself flatter against the dumpster, praying they wouldn't look back. When their footsteps faded, Lily stayed frozen. Her legs wanted to run straight to Mama, to hide, to pretend she hadn't seen anything. But then she remembered that nod, the way he'd looked at her like she was real, like she mattered. Nobody was going to kill a man who'd seen her like that. Lily's small hands balled into fists. She had to warn him. But how do you tell a monster that someone's trying to kill him? Especially when you're 6 years old and your voice barely carries across a room. Inside the diner, she could hear the bikers laughing, ordering food. She had maybe 10 minutes before they left. 10 minutes before Bo Wrecker Wilson climbed onto a motorcycle that would kill him. Lily's legs were moving before her brain caught up. The diner door swung open with its familiar jingle, and the Stone Guardians poured out onto Main Street like a river of leather and denim. Their laughter cut through the afternoon heat, deep, rough sounds that made shopkeepers step back from their windows. Bo clapped his road captain on the shoulder, some joke between brothers that Lily couldn't hear. He was already reaching for his helmet, already turning toward that midnight black Harley, the one with the cut brake line. No, the word escaped Lily's lips as barely a whisper. Inside the diner, Mama was distracted, talking to Betty at the counter. The distance between the booth and the door looked like a mile. The distance between the door and those motorcycles looked like the Grand Canyon. But Lily remembered her daddy's last words, whispered from his hospital bed. Sometimes being brave just means doing the scared thing anyway, baby girl. She ran. Her sneakers slapped against the linoleum, then the concrete sidewalk, then the scorching asphalt that burned through her thin soles. The heat rose in waves, making the bikers look like they were underwater. Wait! Her voice came out smaller than she'd intended, lost in the rumble of engines starting up. Nobody heard. Bo's hand was on his throttle. One twist, and he'd be gone, riding toward that curve, toward mile marker 47, toward... Wait! This time she screamed it. 12 heads turned. 12 pairs of eyes locked onto the little girl in the faded red dress running straight at them. Lily didn't stop. She couldn't. She ran right up to Bo's bike and grabbed a fistful of his jeans with both hands, looking up at a man who seemed tall as a building. Mister! Her voice shook so hard she could barely form words. Someone hurt your bike. Kid, what the... One of the other bikers started, annoyance sharp in his tone. Get your kid, lady, another called toward the diner. But Bo held up one massive hand, and the voices died like someone had flipped a switch. His eyes, gray as January clouds, studied Lily's face. She watched him see her tear-streaked cheeks, her trembling chin, the way her small fingers were white-knuckled against his jeans. Then, slowly, this mountain of a man lowered himself down. His knees cracked as he crouched, bringing his bearded face level with hers. Up close, she could see the scars on his knuckles, the faded ink on his neck, the silver in his beard. She could also see something else, something that made her remember why she'd run in the first place. Kindness. What did you see, little one? His voice was gravel and whiskey, but gentle, like he was talking to something precious that might break. Lily's finger trembled as she pointed toward the front wheel. 2 men, in the alley. They had cutters. The silver kind. They said Mr. Higgins paid them. They said... Her voice dropped to a horrified whisper. They said you'd crash. At the curve. They said nasty accident. The other bikers went quiet. The kind of quiet that comes before a storm. Bo's jaw clenched, a muscle jumping beneath his beard. But his eyes never left Lily's face. She watched him make a choice, to trust or to dismiss. To believe a 6-year-old girl, or to laugh it off and ride to his death. "Show me exactly where," he said softly. Lily pointed to the front wheel with a shaking finger. Bo stood and walked his bike. He crouched down. His hands, those huge, scarred hands, moved over the chrome with surprising gentleness, like he was checking a wound on something he loved. Then he went still. When he straightened up, he was holding two pieces of severed cable, one in each hand. The silence that fell over Main Street was absolute. Somewhere across the street, hidden in the shadow of the feed store, Lily saw a flash of expensive suit. Mr. Higgins, and he was reaching for something in his jacket. The severed cable dangled from Bo's fingers like a dead snake. For 3 heartbeats, nobody moved. The stone guardians stared at the evidence of attempted murder, their faces going hard as concrete. Lily watched muscles tense, hands curl into fists, jaws clench with the promise of violence. This was the moment Mama had warned her about, when the monsters stopped pretending. Bo's chest rose and fell, his breath coming deeper. Lily could see the fury building in him like pressure in a boiler, hot, dangerous, ready to explode. His knuckles went white around those cable ends. Then his eyes dropped to her. She was still standing there, one small hand resting against his bike, looking up at him with wide, terrified eyes. Not afraid of him, afraid for him, afraid of what he might do, what might cost. Something shifted in Bo's face. He took a breath, long, deliberate, like he was swallowing something that tasted like battery acid. When he looked up again, his eyes had changed, still angry but colder, sharper, more dangerous in a different way. "Reaper," he said quietly to his road captain, "get the sheriff. Bo, we can handle. Get the sheriff." Not a request, a command. Across Main Street, Bartholomew Higgins stood in the shadow of his feed store, Dale and Rick flanking him like trained dogs. He wore a 3-piece suit despite the July heat, his silver watch catching the sun. And on his face, that smug, satisfied smile that said he owned this town and everything in it, including the right to decide who lived and who died on its roads. Bo turned slowly, deliberately, to face him. Then he raised both hands high above his head, holding the severed cables like evidence in a courtroom. The clean cuts caught the light, impossible to miss, impossible to deny. "Folks of Havenwood," Bo's voice rolled down Main Street like thunder before rain. Not shouting. Didn't need to. That voice had commanded men in worse places than this. "Some people in this town don't like us here." Windows that had been empty suddenly filled with faces. The hardware store owner, the pharmacist, old widow Sean from the post office, Betty wiping her hands on her apron. Even Mama, Lily realized, had come outside. They'd rather see a man dead in a ditch than share the same road. Bo's eyes never left Higgins. This is the kind of courage they have. Cut a brake line. Wait for the highway to do the dirty work. Real brave. Real honorable. Higgins' smile faltered. Just a flicker, but Lily saw it. "You got something to say, Higgins?" Bo's voice dropped lower, more dangerous. "Or are you just going to stand there like you always do? Safe behind your money and your hired cowards?" Dale's hand moved toward his waistband. "Don't." The word cracked like a whip from Bo's road captain, whose own hand had moved faster. "Don't even think about it." The street held its breath. Sheriff Morrison's patrol car pulled up, lights off, but presence unmistakable. He was a big man himself, gone soft around the middle, but his eyes were sharp as he took in the scene. The cables in Bo's hands, Higgins and his men across the street, the little girl standing between two worlds. "Someone want to tell me what's going on?" Morrison's hand rested casual on his belt, but Lily noticed how close it was to his gun. Bo held out the cables. "Attempted murder, Sheriff." Cut clean through. Professional job. He nodded toward Lily. The little one saw who did it. All eyes turned to her. Lily's mouth went dry. She'd never spoken to a sheriff before, never accused anyone of anything. And Dale Carver was staring at her now with eyes that promised terrible things if she opened her mouth. Across the street, Higgins pulled something from his jacket. Not a gun, a phone. And Lily realized with cold certainty he was calling someone. Someone with more power than a small-town sheriff. Someone who could make little girls and their problems disappear. Her voice needed to work. Right now. But would anyone believe a 6-year-old against the richest man in 3 counties? Lily's voice came out small but steady. It was Dale and Rick. In the alley. Behind the dumpster. The words hung in the summer air like gun smoke. Sheriff Morrison's eyes shifted from the little girl to the severed cables, then to Dale Carver, whose face had gone the color of old milk. The math wasn't hard. Even a crooked sheriff, and Morrison had taken a share of Higgins' money over the years, couldn't ignore attempted murder witnessed by a child in front of 50 townspeople. Betty from the diner stepped forward, wiping her hands on her apron. I saw Dale and Rick hanging around that alley about 20 minutes ago, Sheriff. Thought it was strange. Me too, said old Mr. Paulson, finding his spine for the first time in years. Saw him skulking around. One by one, the townspeople of Havenwood made their choice. The hardware store owner nodded. The pharmacist crossed her arms. Even the feed store clerk, one of Higgins' own employees, looked away from his boss with disgust. The fear that had ruled this town for so long curdled into something else. Something righteous. Sheriff Morrison's hand moved from his belt to his cuffs. Dale Carver. Rick Carver. You're under arrest for attempted murder. He looked at Higgins, whose phone was still pressed to his ear. And, Mr. Higgins, I believe we need to have a conversation down at the station about conspiracy. For the first time in Havenwood's history, Bartholomew Higgins had nowhere to hide. Bo watched the sheriff lead the 3 men away, then turned back to Lily. His massive frame folded down until he was kneeling on the hot asphalt, eye level with the little girl who'd saved his life. Come here, kid. Lily stepped forward, and Mama didn't stop her. From his leather vest, Bo pulled something small, a smooth gray river stone, worn soft by water and time, the symbol of the Stone Guardians. He pressed it into her small palm, wrapping her fingers around it. You're a Stone Guardian now. His gravel voice went rough with emotion. That means we look after our own. Forever. You need anything, you call us. Your family. Tears streamed down Lily's cheeks, but she was smiling. Thank you for seeing me, she whispered. Bo's eyes went bright. Thank you for saving me, little guardian. 10 minutes later, 12 Harleys rumbled to life on Main Street. But this time, the sound was different. Not a threat rolling into town, a promise rolling out. A vow that Havenwood had guardians now, whether it wanted them or not. Lily stood on the sidewalk, her small fist clutched tight around that gray stone, watching them disappear down the highway. The little girl who'd been too scared to look at them through the diner window now stood proud, wearing invisible armor. Because she'd learned what Mama never taught her. Sometimes the scariest looking people have the biggest hearts. And sometimes family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up when the brakes fail. Before we go, what was the moment that shifted your thoughts from this story? Tell me in the comments right now, and also add your city. Let's see where you're asking us this from. After that, hit that subscribe button. Also check out the 2 videos showing on the screen right now, specially crafted for you.